My husband, a 28-year-old man, and I, a 27-year-old woman, have been married for 2 years. Our daughter was born 5 weeks ago. In order to avoid wasting your time with extraneous facts, I will attempt to keep this brief. In contrast to my spouse and me, who have brown hair and brown eyes, our daughter was born with blonde hair and pale blue eyes. This startled my husband, who would not listen to my explanation that sometimes newborns have lighter hair and eyes that eventually turn darker. I complied with his desire for a paternity test since he had threatened to divorce me if I hadn't. My husband went to live with his parents for the first 3 weeks after my daughter and I returned from the hospital so he could have some privacy while I healed. My mother-in-law called me after I told him what was going on, threatening to take legal action to ensure that I was taken to the cleaners after the divorce if the paternity test showed the child wasn't his. During this time, I had my sister to support and assist me in taking care of the infant. Yesterday, we received the findings, and my spouse came home to see them with me. He took a seat next to me on the living room couch as I was reading the results. When it was revealed that he was the father, my husband's eyes widened and he had a stunned, almost embarrassed, expression on his face. Saying, "I told you so," I couldn't help but giggle at his appearance. After he recovered from his shock, my husband became irate with me for making fun of him. My sister came downstairs, and after we argued for a while, mostly him yelling at me, my husband stopped talking. After my husband returned to his parents' place to get some space for himself, my mother-in-law contacted me 2 or 3 hours later to chastise me for laughing in his face, which she claimed constituted kicking him while he was on the ground. She basically said the same thing in a few of angry SMS that she also left. I don't believe I'm an a-hole this morning, but I would want to hear another viewpoint on this. Edit. I apologize. I didn't realize I wrote me instead of him. My headache is here. Edit. I have never cheated before since someone asked in the comments, though I can't find it now. Not the a-hole was the vote in the comments on the original post. Here are a few of those remarks. Not the a-hole. But why would you continue to live with someone who has such a poor understanding of biology, and whose mother is obviously toxic? So he was down by finding out that he was mistaken and you didn't actually get pregnant with someone else's child? Is another community comment. The original poster responds, I did not realize he would refuse to listen to basic facts about biology when I married him. I wish you luck, dude. He has to give you a heartfelt apology, or 3. I apologize for your husband and in-laws. This is crazy, stated another person. He left you after the birth and had you take care of a newborn on your own while you recovered. In addition, my spouse and I have a baby who doesn't look like either of us. We both had brown hair and brown eyes, yet she came out with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes. Wow, genetics are crazy, exclaimed both of us, and we both moved on. I apologize so much for what you're going through as a new mother of a newborn. Well, isn't that the icing on the cake for your postpartum Sunday, which is already really enjoyable? There's nothing like a good dose of in-law meddling, a dash of incredulity, and a sprinkling of distrust to truly make being a new parent exciting, is there? Not to mention the pleasure of receiving a reprimand from the mother-in-law for enjoying some well-earned "I told you so" humor. You're definitely living the dream. They were both acting completely inappropriately towards you, OP. She just has it out for you. You wouldn't have one with her no matter what. Update. 2 months have passed. I want to start this piece by expressing my gratitude for all of the help and encouragement I received. I can now officially kick my ex in the butt because of all of you. I apologize for abandoning you for the previous 2 months as well. So, let me give you the update. I made the decision to look for divorce attorneys in my area with my sister after publishing my post. I eventually located and met with someone who was willing to provide virtual consultations, though it took some time. My ex did not communicate with me at all throughout this time, but I did check in to see how he was doing. My ex eventually returned to our home after he was served and attempted to convince me not to forward with the divorce. He declared his undying love for me and offered to take me to couples counseling. My ex made a mistake during this and acknowledged that he had cheated on me before leaving. He claimed that while attempting to justify his week-long absence, he became entangled with his coworker. My brain kicked back into gear and asked if getting caught up with her was code for that he F her. My ex stammered over his words and tried to sidestep the question, but he seemed to quickly realize that I wasn't going to let up on this. At first, I didn't realize who he was talking about because he called her by a nickname, think Viv over Vivian. He acknowledged that he was anxious about becoming a father and that he went to her for emotional support prior to the birth of our child, finally effing her during his absence. I told my ex that I wanted 50-50 custody and that we were divorcing without any ifs, ands, or buts. I had had enough and said, "So you guys were right about him cheating. All we would talk about was our daughter, the divorce, and the custody agreement." My ex simply nodded in agreement with what I was saying after that and inquired about seeing our daughter. Despite my initial reluctance, I agreed and asked my sister to bring our kid down to the living room. Before departing, my ex held our daughter and chatted with the infant. After he left, my sister inquired about my well-being, to which I replied that I was okay. My mother-in-law called me and tried to badger me about getting a divorce from my ex, but I had already blocked her, so she turned to my sister. Since my mother-in-law texted my sister to inform her that I would be living on the streets, I suppose she was unaware that I am the owner of the house my ex and I once shared. Since my ex moved out and is now living with her, my mother-in-law is aware of that. Our daughter has visited her ex a few times. Those encounters were unpleasant, to put it mildly, but I made it through. I hope I won't need to update you folks on this matter in the future. Let's now hear from the community with a few remarks. First off, is Opie simply trapped, or does her willingness to turn a child into a homeless person have any bearing? The Opie replies, "I think she assumed that if I got kicked out, my daughter would be stuck with my ex rather than me taking my daughter with me and staying at my parents' house." Another person chimes in, "So he wrongly accuses you of cheating, then turns around and cheats on you. Thank goodness you're divorcing him and leaving him and his mother behind. Best of luck to you and your daughter." The next person says, "Right REF, right of first refusal, or assuring priority of parental care. This refers to situations where a parent is unable to meet any obligation for the care of the child during their scheduled time. They must then contact the other parent to offer them to have the child before they use another family member or babysitter over the other parent. So if your ex has the baby but just drops her off at his mother's house, takes off, you can take your child back home with you or eventually get more custody time if he is not using his custody time to be with his child." The next person says, "I don't think 50-50 custody is the right thing here. He has no parental instincts for his child at all, even denying he was the father up to this point. It sounds like he hasn't even fed her or changed a diaper. You shouldn't turn her over to him half the time. He'll probably just hand her off to the mother-in-law to raise. You should be going for full custody based on him abandoning you and your daughter after the birth, as well as refusing to believe he was the father. He should pay child support and not corrupt his daughter further." The next person says, "As mean as this will sound, going for 50-50 is the perfect play. She's going to offer it, at which point this utter soggy ham sandwich of a man will wilt and run away. He will be the one to turn it down, so we'll get all this documented, and her lawyers will have a grand old laugh about how he was so neatly screwed himself over." One more person chimes in, "Then this is what my mom did. She refused to fight for us 3 kids in the divorce because she knew if she said she wanted custody, Dad would fight it out of spite. But if she just let it happen, she would get us. She was right. She got full custody, Dad got visitation rights, and then we saw him once or twice a year for the next 10 years because he's a lazy, self-interested man. So your ex had a moment of clarity, huh? Eventually acknowledged his extracurricular involvement after accusing you of being a cheater. Traditional action. Not to mention the sincere appeal for forgiveness, laced with a dash of, 'Let's try couples therapy,' and a sprinkle of, 'I love you more than anyone.' Well done, friend, but I believe your ship has sailed straight into a sea of divorce papers. However, before he packed his bags and moved in with your mother-in-law, his biggest fan club president, at least he spent some quality time with his daughter. It sounds like a match made in hell. Not to mention the faint indications from the cosmos that perhaps, just possibly, complete custody might be the best course of action. When you can successfully negotiate the perilous seas of motherhood on your own, who needs a deadweight co-parent? How do you interpret this? Next up is it really all about the bride? I was asked not to wear a certain color to a wedding. I figured this also fits here and wanted to get some more opinions on if I'm an a-hole. My oldest sister, Elaine, 31, female, is getting married in October 2022 to her fiancé of 4 years, Stephen, 35, male. I, 25, female, and the youngest of 4 sisters, although from my perspective we have always been close growing up. Well, in May, Elaine asked her second sister, Gabriella, 29, female, to be her maid of honor, which is understandable because they have always been super close growing up. Me and my third sister, Celia, 26, female, expected to be bridesmaids too. However, Elaine decided to include Stephen's daughters, Tiffany, 12, female, and Sasha, 8, female, in the bridal party instead, which we were obviously a little upset about but understood that it was our sister's special day. Well, anyway, in July, I was visiting our mom while Elaine and Gabriella were also visiting. I overheard them planning the wedding and decided to ask about the wedding color since I was and am still super excited for my sister to get married. Elaine told me that she was thinking of something bespoke and non-traditional for her wedding dress, which I thought was cool and totally her style, though I still assumed the color of the dress would be white but had no way of checking since I wasn't a bridesmaid, and any texts I sent to Gabriella were ignored because it's supposed to be a surprise. In August, I picked out a yellow dress online as I thought it was a safe bet color-wise. Before I brought the dress, I sent a picture to Gabriella, who once again left me on read. I asked Celia if she thought the dress was okay, and she agreed that since it's not floor length, it should be okay to wear to Elaine's wedding. The dress is a light yellow knee-length plain asymmetrical dress, and it was finally delivered last week. After it was delivered, I sent pictures to everyone, and then Elaine freaked out at me. She called me 7 times while I was at work. When I finally picked up, she yelled at me about how I was an awful sister and was stealing my niece's spotlight after her wedding. Apparently, Tiffany and Sasha were supposed to be the only ones wearing yellow because Elaine wanted them to feel special. I told Elaine that if I ordered another dress, it wouldn't arrive on time. 2. Which he told me to go to a bridal store and buy a different dress. I told her that I had already spent $50 on a new dress for her wedding and that I wasn't going to spend another $200 on a fancy bridal dress store. Elaine called me selfish and told me not to bother attending her wedding if I didn't change my dress last minute. Everyone in our family is saying I'm an a-hole for wanting to take away attention from 2 little girls on their dad's wedding day, and that I should just suck it up for my sister. So am I the a-hole? Edit. As so many kind people have pointed out, yes, I could go to Goodwill and find another dress. I have already suggested this to Elaine, but she rejected the idea because this is my wedding, not a Walmart. I also offered to wear an old homecoming dress, which is pink. This also wasn't good enough for Elaine because Gabriella is wearing pink, and Elaine didn't want me to be dressed exactly like Gabriella, even though Celia is also wearing a similar pink dress. I could go to Goodwill in my spare time, but Elaine has said that she wants to pick out the dress so I don't ruin her wedding. As for dyeing the yellow dress, I don't want to spend $50 on fabric dye only for it to go wrong and then be down $100 with no dress to wear to my sister's wedding, which is in early October. The dress I planned on wearing. Let's check in with the community for a quick relevant comment. Not the a-hole. Before you purchased it, she had the chance to advise you not to wear it. Sending a picture after was a mistake on your part. When another uninvited guest wears yellow, what will she do? The absurd thing is, our mom bought a floor-length white dress, and Elaine was okay with it. The original poster responds, "Please do not allow any other bridesmaid to wear a color that even somewhat resembles sunlight, as Tiffany and Sasha, Stephen's little princesses, must undoubtedly remain the center of attention. It is, after all, their day as well, right?" False. When you can be the rebel in yellow clothes, prepared to upset the current quo, why needs a white knight? and the comments are right. She had a chance to tell you not to buy the dress, and yeah, maybe the message might have gotten lost in the whole stress of planning a wedding, but with you being her sister, you'd think she'd keep you in the know of the wedding details. It's hard to believe your sister is willing to put something like this in between the two of you since you've been so close. Growing up. Update: Elaine's wedding was this past Tuesday, and as many people suggested, I wore my old homecoming dress, which was a pink knee-length dress. In the days leading up to the wedding, my mom and Elaine called me nonstop to tell me that if I wore a yellow dress, I would not be allowed into the wedding venue and that Elaine should be the one to pick my dress from a bridal shop. As many people suggested, I told Elaine that if she wanted to pick my dress, she could pay for it. Elaine became extremely annoyed with me for my response, and said it was disrespectful to her personally and as a bride, and that I should be more understanding about how expensive weddings are. I reminded her that she was the one who wanted a large black tie wedding and that no one forced her to be so controlling over colors and outfits. Elaine then proceeded to block me via text, but clearly told our family what I said because I continued to receive texts from our mom and Gabriella who told me I was rude and that wedding planning is stressful and I should be more accommodating. I told my mother and Gabriella that if Elaine wanted to be so controlling about my dress, that she could pay for it, and I would wear my old homecoming dress. That shut both my mom and Gabriella up, and I didn't hear anything else about the topic of dresses from them until the morning of Elaine's wedding. On the day of Elaine's wedding, I waited for 10 minutes while my mother refused to send me the directions to the wedding venue because she didn't know how. Eventually, I gave up on my mom and asked Celia to send the directions instead because clearly, our mom wanted me to miss the wedding. At this point, I was considering not attending the wedding at all, but I figured if I attended that my family couldn't say that I lacked effort or was being petty towards my sister. When I arrived at the wedding venue, most of the guests were already there. As I said, Elaine planned to have 100 people at her wedding, and since she hadn't specified that no one should wear yellow, there were at least 10 people present dressed in yellow, one of whom was Stephen's mother. Well, anyway, the real drama started when the rest of our extended family arrived at the wedding. My mother's brother began talking to me and said that he was glad I managed to get a new dress and that yellow wasn't my color anyway, so I asked him if he thought it was appropriate for my sister, my mother, to wear white to her own daughter's wedding, which he didn't reply to. I got a lot of dirty looks from my other family members and mean comments about how cheap I was and how much audacity I had to ask the bride to pay for my dress. At that point, I figured I could suck it up for a few more hours just to see Elaine get married and then I could drop off the wedding gift at the reception. Well, at the wedding reception, Elaine came up to me and pulled me aside. She told me that since she didn't think I would come to the wedding, that she had canceled my meal and that I owed her $110 if I wanted to eat at her wedding, since it cost her $110 per head to book. I asked her why she had anticipated her own sister not attending her wedding, and she made out like it was my fault. I told her that I didn't have to deal with this, and if this was how she wanted to be, that she could consider herself no longer my sister. I left Elaine's wedding immediately and took my gift with me, just a bottle of wine and a card. My family has texted me non-stop about how petty and jealous I am of Elaine, etc., etc. So Reddit was right, my sister was trying to exclude me from her wedding. Thanks for that. I will now be going no contact with Elaine and my mother for their favoritism. Let's check with the community for a few comments and additional info. The first person asks, have they treated you like this before? How are the relationships among you developing? They must have tried to keep you out of festivities and shown you their low opinion of you before this wedding. The OP responded, I honestly thought we were close growing up. Like sure, my older sisters would do stuff on their own, but I figured that was just because they wanted time to themselves, not because they were purposely trying to exclude me from their lives. The next person comments, holy crap, I actually can't believe the audacity of your mom. In any case, good riddance, keep the no contact, and don't even invite them to your future wedding. Did your mother truly dress in white for Elaine's wedding, along with the other family members? On FOP, is the family scapegoat even if the OP responds, yes, our mom wore white to Elaine's wedding, But this wasn't a problem because she apparently had 2 wedding dresses according to Celia. However, I left without seeing Elaine's second dress. To answer your question, Elaine's family used to tell our parents that she was the most beautiful person they had ever seen and that as a result, she would marry a successful man and have a wonderful future. She competed in kid pageants before. About her relationship with her sisters, the OP says, "Well, Celia thinks I'm right to cut contact with Elaine after the way she treated me over the whole yellow dress issue and the way she spoke to me at the wedding. I have no idea how Gabriella feels because she hasn't made an effort to get in touch. Who would have thought that picking out a dress color could spark a full-fledged family conflict? Say yes to the dress done in a perverted manner is this. We are suggesting that doing the wrong thing will get you sent to exile. How on earth did this come to pass? Honestly, what has become of your sister? Considering how close you've all been before, this feels quite strange. However, at least you succeeded in stirring things up and revealing your mother and sister's true nature. Wedding festivities don't sound as festive as they do when white gowns, postponed dinners, and constant texting are involved. I hope destructive family dynamics and silly dress codes don't affect you in the future. Toast to severing ties and getting your sanity back while sipping that bottle of wine. How would you respond? Again, I want to thank you for coming.